Nobody knows who wrote the words to Happy Birthday. Not one person. Not one name. The most sung song in human history, performed billions of times at every birthday party in every country, in every language on earth, has no known author. And for 80 years, a corporation collected $2 million a year from it anyway. This is the story of the most recognizable song ever written. Who composed it, who owned it, who profited from it, and how one woman working on a reality TV show about teenage birthday parties accidentally started a legal battle that changed everything. In 1893, two sisters from Louisville, Kentucky published a small songbook for kindergarten teachers. Mildred Hill composed the melody. She was a trained pianist, an organist, and one of the most remarkable musicologists of her era. She documented African American street music and church spirituals across Louisville at a time when nobody considered that work worth preserving. She wrote under a male pen name because women's scholarship wasn't taken seriously. Her sister Patty wrote the original lyrics. She was a progressive education pioneer who would go on to teach at Columbia University for 30 years and become the founding president of what is now the National Association for the Education of Young Children. Their song was called Good Morning to All. It was a classroom greeting, sung to welcome children at the start of the school day. Neither sister had any idea what they had started. At some point between 1893 and 1912, someone changed the words. Good morning to you became happy birthday to you. The change was simple, natural, obvious. Teachers probably started doing it on their own, singing Good Friday to you on Fridays, Good morning to you on regular days, happy birthday to you when a child celebrated. The birthday version first appeared in print in 1912 in a children's songbook. No author was credited. In 1924, it appeared again in another songbook, still with no credit. Nobody asked the Hill sisters. Nobody paid them. Nobody even told them. Robert Brownice, the leading copyright historian on this song, spent years trying to identify who wrote the birthday lyrics. He published a 68-page academic paper on the subject. His conclusion: it is simply unknowable. The word spread through oral tradition among teachers and classrooms across America, uncredited and unowned. The most sung song in human history was written by nobody, or perhaps everybody. Through the 1920s and 1930s, Happy Birthday to You spread like wildfire. It appeared in Broadway musicals. It was chosen for Western Union's very first singing telegram in 1933, sent to entertainer Rudy Valley. It showed up in Irving Berlin's hit Broadway revue that same year. It played on the radio. It appeared in talking pictures. Nobody was paying the Hill sisters. Nobody was asking permission. Then, in 1934, a third Hill sister stepped in. Jessica Mattea Hill was the family's legal guardian, sharp, practical, and unwilling to let the family's work be exploited indefinitely. She filed suit against the producers of a Broadway show using the melody. She won a settlement. And then she did something that would shape the next 80 years of music history. She transferred the copyright to their publisher and began building a legal framework around the song. In 1935, the Clayton F. Summy Company officially registered a copyright for Happy Birthday to You. There was one significant problem. The registration credited Preston Ware Oram for piano arrangements, a man who did not write the melody. It credited a woman named Mrs. R.R. Foreman for lyrics, a woman who did not write the birthday words anyone actually sang. She had written an unused alternate verse. The 1935 copyright covered specific piano arrangements of the music, not the melody, not the lyrics, not the song as anyone in the world actually knew it. This technical flaw would sit quietly inside the copyright for the next 80 years, unknown to most, exploited by corporations, and eventually used to tear the whole thing down. In 1988, Warner Chappell Music purchased the company that owned the Happy Birthday copyright. The price was $25 million. Of that, $5 million was attributed specifically to Happy Birthday. Warner Chappell was not passive. They enforced the copyright aggressively. They hired representatives to monitor film productions, television broadcasts, restaurant chains, and recording studios. Anyone who wanted to use Happy Birthday in a commercial context had to pay. A documentary filmmaker paid $1,500. The producers of Hoop Dreams paid $5,000. Major Hollywood films paid between $20,000 and $30,000 per use. Some single uses reportedly commanded six-figure fees. And every year, the total collected added up to approximately $2 million, the most sung song in the world. And every public performance of it was, technically, someone else's property. Walk into a Chili's on your birthday. The staff will gather around your table and sing to you. But they will not sing Happy Birthday. They will sing something else, an upbeat, cheerful, carefully written alternative that Chili's created specifically for this purpose. So did Red Robin. So did TGI Fridays. So did Chuck E. Cheese. These weren't creative decisions. They were legal ones. Under the copyright regime Warner Chappell enforced, a restaurant chain with thousands of locations singing Happy Birthday every night faced potential liability at a scale that was simply not worth risking. The math was straightforward. Pay lawyers to write a new song once, or pay Warner Chappell forever. They wrote new songs. For decades, the version of Happy Birthday most Americans heard at chain restaurants was a corporate substitute, designed by legal departments to sound festive without triggering a licensing bill. On May 19, 1962, Marilyn Monroe walked onto the stage at Madison Square Garden. President John F. Kennedy sat in the audience. It was 10 days before his actual birthday. 15,000 people watched as she sang the most recognizable birthday song in the world in a voice that turned a kindergarten greeting into something that has never been forgotten. The dress she wore sold in 2016 for $4.8 million, and technically, under the law as it existed that night, every note she sang required a license that nobody had paid for. Nobody sued. Nobody sent a bill. But the copyright was there, waiting, for the right target, in the right courtroom, with the right amount of money at stake. In the early 2000s, a television producer named Jennifer Nelson was working on a reality show about teenage birthday parties. A colleague told her, matter-of-factly, "You can't film anyone singing Happy Birthday. Just don't do that." Nelson found this absurd. She began investigating. She discovered the Warner Chappell copyright, the licensing fees, the restaurant workarounds, the entire commercial apparatus built around a song that teachers had sung to children for free for over a century. She decided to make a documentary about it. As part of her research, she paid Warner Chappell $1,500 for a license. Then she found a 68-page academic paper by a law professor at George Washington University, the most thorough analysis of the Happy Birthday copyright ever written. The professor's conclusion: the copyright was almost certainly invalid. He told an interviewer that if anyone challenged it, they would probably win. Nelson decided to be that person. On June 13, 2013, Jennifer Nelson filed a class action lawsuit against Warner Chappell Music in federal court. The argument was simple. The 1935 copyright covered specific piano arrangements, not the melody and lyrics as anyone actually knew them. Warner Chappell had been collecting money for 80 years based on a copyright that didn't cover what they claimed it covered. Other plaintiffs joined. A musician who had paid $455 to include a birthday concert recording on her album. A filmmaker who had paid $3,000. The producers of Hoop Dreams, who had paid $5,000 Warner Chappell, fought back. They had $2 million a year to protect. The case moved slowly through the courts. Depositions were taken, documents were produced, and then, in the archives, something extraordinary was found. On September 22, 2015, Chief Judge George H. King of the United States District Court ruled Warner Chappell did not own Happy Birthday. The 1935 copyright registration, the judge found, covered only piano arrangements. There was no evidence that the Summy Company had ever actually acquired the rights to the birthday lyrics. Preston Ware Oram didn't write the melody. Mrs. Foreman didn't write the famous words. The copyright was built on a foundation that had never actually existed. In June 2016, the settlement was finalised. Warner Chappell paid $14 million to the class. Happy Birthday to You was officially declared public domain. The most commercially exploited song in history, $2 million a year for 80 years, had never legally belonged to anyone. There is one more thing to know about this story. Mildred Hill, the woman who composed the melody, who documented African American music when nobody else thought it mattered, whose research reached Antonin Dvorak and may have shaped the New World Symphony, died in 1916. She died 20 years before the copyright was registered, 40 years before the song became commercially valuable, 70 years before Warner Chappell bought it for $5 million. She died believing she had written a classroom greeting for kindergarten children in Louisville, Kentucky. She never heard it sung at a birthday party. She never knew it would circle the globe. She never knew it would be performed billions of times in every language on every continent, or that a corporation would spend 80 years collecting money from it. The most recognized song in the English language was composed by a woman who died not knowing she had written it. Happy birthday to you.